Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Before I introduce today's guest, Don Myers, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. Listen, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades. I know I don't look that old, but it's true. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs racked, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we can help with design, engineering, installations, inspections, and repairs to help clients optimize their logistics operations. You know what, Don, sometimes people don't even realize that we can actually help with permanent acquisition services. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit specialracks.com or give us a call at 707-732-3892. And I'll even give you my personal email for podcast listeners. Just email me, markhiddleson@aol.com, if you're ready to take your warehouse storage and retrieval systems to the next level. But today, we're joined by Don Myers. Don started his career better than 40 years ago at Los Angeles Clark Lift and has enjoyed a great career ever since. For the last 2+ decades, he's been a sales manager for 2 different forklift and material handling dealerships with multiple locations in Northern California. Don has been a mentor for me for over a quarter of a century. He's provided inspiration, support, and an incredible amount of business opportunities. Don, I think I may have told you this before, but you were the very first person I called when I started my company, and it was the right call. Thank you for joining us on the Tao of Pizza.
Morning, Mark. Thanks for that great intro.
It's the understatement of the year. Really, thank you. I've been looking forward to this. When I was thinking of this project, you were, the first person I called when I started my company.
I remember.
Yeah. And you were one of the first people I wanted to interview on the show because you have been just a great inspiration. So I'm curious. I didn't realize. I think I might have known you were Southern California guy, but how did you get started in the lift truck industry or material handling industry?
Well, back at that time, I was working for Los Angeles 7-Up Bottling Company as major accounts representative, selling lots of soda pop all over Southern California to the military bases, to the airlines, the catering industry. It was a great job for a young guy with a couple of kids. Worked out pretty well. My best friend, one of my guys that was in my wedding 51 years ago, yikes, that's dating myself, was working for Sparkletts Water Company, selling water. So similar, right? We were selling liquid. He wandered into Clark Lift, Los Angeles Clark Lift, in their Chatsworth facility, ran into a guy named Dick Besky, who was the branch manager. And he said, "Kid, with that spiel, you should be selling forklifts, not water." And the rest was history for Rick Lopez, who owns his own company called National Lift Fleet Leasing. But he drugged me in as his product support guy. And I worked happily there in Chatsworth and then up in Ventura County during the years of the fruit fly infestation. So that was a costly experiment for me and the then governor and then the repeat governor. But after that, the sales manager there was joining the forces with Clark Lift West in Sacramento. That's John Curliker. And he's a legendary James Bond-looking kind of guy, a dynamic sales guy. Taught me lots of things like, we went for a ride, I was making sales calls at an MGB, by the way. And I got John Curliker in there in his suit and tie. And he said, "Hey, where do you live?" I said, "Oh, Simi Valley." He said, "Well, drive me there." And I said, "What?" He said, No, just drive me there." So I drove him over there. He said, "Okay, now get out and go in the house, get a goddamn tie, and let's look like real salesmen." And so that's stuck. And as Mark knows, I wear a tie a lot, particularly in the winter when I can wear a sport coat. But I learned that lesson as well as many other things from John Curliker Rick Lopez, whom I still do lots of business with, NLFL, as kind of a partnership on one of our product lines. But that was the auspicious start into the lift truck business, and John whooshed me way up to Sacramento, and one of the best moves I'd ever made.
Yeah, the move from Southern Cal to Northern Cal, and about how long ago was that? Because I mean, you don't have to say.
1981 was when we moved up here. Yeah.
Nice.
That's a while back.
Yeah. So the med fly, so the fruit fly was called the med fly, right? Because it was the med fly, Mediterranean fruit fly.
Mediterranean fruit fly, yeah. I had trucks on order. I was at the factory for some training, and calling in, you remember payphone? We had payphones in those days, tin can and a string. I called in, and the same branch manager was saying, "Hey, we just had another cancellation from this big fruit company and that fruit company." So they all canceled their orders. I went to the factory thinking I was a stud, and came back a pauper. Oh well.
It happened.
We weathered that. And by the way, then the interest rate was, huh?
Oh, I wanted to go back to the MedFly thing, because there was a funny family story that you remind me of from back then. And my uncle used to be in construction, and he was staying with us because he had a project in Stockton, lived in Ripon, which was pretty close. But my mom had baked a peach pie, and it was during all this thing and everything. And she had, there were fresh peaches, we just, in Ripon or whatever, you just got peaches from your neighbor, right? You didn't buy it at the store. So they were homegrown peaches, and she made this pie, and she wasn't sure, but she maybe thought that she saw some larvae in there. Maybe it was just, the TV with all the hype that she saw. So she put the pie in the refrigerator, and to make up her mind, because she's like, I baked this pie, I don't really want to throw it away. Well, my uncle woke up in the morning, he was construction, so he was up at dark 30 before everyone else, and he's like, oh, they made a pie. So he took a big old slice of the MedFly pie, and we just at that point he had to tell him there was a reason that none of us had taken a bite out of it yet, but he thought it tasted pretty good. So it's the MedFly pie.
The MedFly pie, that's a good tie-in.
Yeah. So you mentioned that all the mentors that you had, and that's awesome that you shared that with me. And you were, when I was a rookie material handling salesman, our companies were kind of joined with, I call it a strategic partnership or a networking partnership, where in our business, you can really choose to focus on forklifts or focus on racks. There's few people who do both really well, but it's tough to do both really well. And so our companies kind of formed an alliance. That's how we met. And I was the rookie. And then at that time, you had a little bit of seniority. And you taught me a lot, not just about sales. I mean, you were super professional. I mean, the tie, we all wore a shirt and tie back then. And, but you taught me a lot about, family life and balance, and that, it's important to be professional and everything, but you really prioritized and made me appreciate, because I put my family first. And some people were like, well, your career is more important. But you always supported me where, I don't think I had any kids. I started having kids when we met, and I wanted to make that a priority. You really supported me in that. You mind sharing, why that's important? I just really appreciate that. 25 years later, I'm so thankful that I had mentors that gave me advice like that.
I'm honored that you'd give me credit for all of that. It's simple and based, kind of faith-based, that what we do every day is to honor our family, to put food on the table, shelter, and hopefully, if you do the job right, you can throw in the extras and college educations and those things that are important that we all strive for. I tell all my employees, family first. If they've got an issue and they need to be somewhere to be there with family, absolutely. We've, as a company here, and I'm very proud of our company, we rally around ours that need extra help. It's been tough through the COVID thing. Of course, last Monday we came in and there were 11 people out with the COVID. I call this the handshake COVID, because thank God it's not as severe as the original dose. But we do what's right for the family. We support them. We pay our people well. I encourage my guys that the focus is on the family. After you've accomplished that, the rest of the stuff kind of comes pretty easy. Picking your work day, don't take it home with you. Don't get up in the middle of the night worrying about it. If you organize yourself correctly, the job becomes so much easier. As I like to say, there's so many moving parts in the business that if you get the machine out of whack, that means if you're honoring your job more than the family, it's not going to work, guys. It's just not going to work. If you plan your day, you plan your sales calls, you say what you're going to do for a client, do what you're going to say, or tell them why you can't do what they can say. Often the salesman will shrink from the hard questions. And believe it or not, one of the hard questions, it turns out, is, Mr. Customer, how would you like to pay for this? How would you like to acquire your material handling equipment? I can't tell you how many times they've come to me for something. I said, well, let's talk about how they're going to pay for this. I better go ask them. What do you mean? So that's what I mean. A lot of moving parts, and keeping your customer informed along the way, keeping your family informed along the way. That's important. I always say you can be extremely successful in this business working a half a day. And all you got to do is pick which 12 hours. Simple as that.
Yeah. And there are, what are some of I love the tough questions, because I think you taught me how to be a professional, and there's things that even though, those uncomfortable, it almost reminds me of cold calling. That in the beginning, it's something that you have to do, that it's what's going to make you successful in the long run is building these contacts. And I don't even call it cold calling. I call it a warm introduction. I'm going to go and do warm introduction, just a way of reframing it. But what are some of the other the questions that you want to ask up front that make your job easier? That and it makes it easier for the client too. If you're talking about how they're going to pay for it, I'm sure it's top of mind for them, right?
Right. I always say, first of all, cold calls. You're right. When we were new at this, it's a little scary. Can't go in and ask for some business. Well, yeah, you can. You can. As it turns out, you can. Even through COVID, I still make calls. We make calls. Sometimes now everybody gets caught up in Salesforce and digital contacts and all that. I think they're great. They're great for organizing your day. They're great for remembering stuff. But man, this is still a belly button business. People want to reach out and touch you. They want to know the sincerity of which you're going to deal. You can't be a yes man when you go in to see a client. You have to ask open-ended questions that reveal their motivation. For example, someone will call up and they need you to send them a quote for a used forklift. Well, that's my favorite hunting ground. I don't send quotes. I don't send quotes at all. If you've got some time for me, Mr. Customer, I'd be happy to stop by. There's too much at stake for the both of us for me to just send you a quote. And chances are, if he's asking for a quote, he's already got the one picked out he wants. He just wants to show his boss he's making the right decision, right? Yeah. And there's nothing better than to destroy somebody else's deal by doing the job correctly, which is go visit them, sit down, and guess what? On the first visit, Mark, you can ask anything. For example, on your first visit, you can say, gee, what is it that you do here? I own the company. Great. On the third or fourth visit, you say, why would you say that? What is it that you do here? Now, which one is better to ask? So that's kind of the reason you want to ask everything on the first visit, everything you can think of without being, idiotic. But really, you're not going to offend a guy in fact, you're going to flatter the guy. What is it that you do? Oh, you own the company. That's fantastic. It's an impressive facility, or whatever you're going to say. Who else would be involved in this decision? What's your motivation? Why do you need this? Where are you going with it? How hard are you going to use the machine? So often salesmen salesmen like electricity or like water, they'll go to the easiest point of contact. And so salesmen say, oh man, I got a used truck sale for $12,000 or whatever it is. But was it the right thing for the client? And if you dig a little deeper, I'm convinced, not just convinced, I've done it in my personal sales career, and I've done it a number of times for my salesmen, asking the simple question that can be offensive and simply is, okay, now that we have all of the facts, and thank you for deciding on that you'd like to buy a used forklift for $12,000. Let me ask you this. When are you planning on going out of business? Provocative question to ask a client, right?
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, I can justify to a light user or to a heavy user, easier with a heavy user, but a light user, why that forklift, which is now going to be a fixed asset, should be the best you can possibly do. And don't get the secret out, but forklifts break in $1,000 bills. I mean, it is expensive to repair a forklift. Just by the time the guy goes out to look under the hood, it's $500. And if he fixes the darn thing, more than that. And then we get built-in obsolescence. You know what that is, Mark? Built-in obsolescence is making your whole warehouse an 8-foot aisle when you know darn well that down the road they're going to need to have it narrower or wider. So either way, they're stuck with something that's going to be expensive. Forklift, if you buy a used truck for 12 grand, and then down the road it breaks and it's 2 or 3 grand, and then God forbid you have a transmission or an engine, that's $6,000 or $7,000. Now you've got this 5 to 8-year-old machine that you've got $20,000 in that now we're going to make it work. And that's built-in obsolescence. So trying to convince the customer what's best for their budget, it's tough, but it's tougher if you don't ask those questions in advance. And is there a time where it's an appropriate sale? Yeah, sometimes we have a real cream puff truck and the guy's application fits it, but I'll know that by asking those questions. How are you going to use it? What are you going to do? The classic for not just sending the quote is often, believe it or not, they'll call in and you'll get a giggle out of this because you get this as well. Okay, how high do you stack your products? Well, we need 25 foot of lift. Excuse me? Yeah, we want a counterbalance forklift that goes 25 feet in the air. We don't particularly make that, but let's have me with a tape measure over there. Turns out they only needed a 15.5 foot lift, right? A 187 3-stage, the standard of our industry. But they have no conception or perception of what their needs actually are, unless you go look. If you go look, it's amazing what you can do. And it also goes to throughput. So we can talk about that later, what throughput is. But anyway, I hope that answers the question for you.
Yeah, you reminded me of 2 things. One is, in the early days, and I was doing a lot of cold calling in those days. It got easier as I went on, but the leads I used to give you, I'll never forget. Like everybody who was looking for a forklift back then, late 90s, early 2000s, they wanted a $5,000 sit down propane used forklift. And
555.
Yeah, and which kind of didn't exist. And what's funny is people are still looking for a $5,000 forklift, even though things have doubled. So now I guess that $12,000 lift is what the $5,000 lift was back then. But
well, even back then it was 12 grand, and they just wanted to start at 5,000.
Yeah, so you were never bashful, and that was, I worked with multiple reps over the years, and one of the things I loved about you is it didn't matter what that they were looking for. A lot of salespeople just said, "Oh, the guy's looking for a 5,000-pound lift, doesn't exist. The guy's a knucklehead." You would always follow up and have those questions. I remember I gave you guy was a plumbing. It was I know his first name was Bill, but he was opening a plumbing company. They wanted a $5,000 lift, but it turns out. Do you remember what happened with that guy? They ended up they leased a brand new forklift, I think.
Yeah, I no doubt use that same question on them, the fixed asset. The thing about sales is thinking on your feet and simply answering their question with a question. It really reveals a lot. And what's to worry about if you buy a used forklift? well, that you're going to get me a great machine. I have this other theory. It's called transference. Everybody wants to transfer their responsibility to somebody else, right? I told you what I needed, and now it's your problem that it didn't work, right? That's transference. Their boss told them to go out and get a cherry forklift, and they only had $5,000 to spend. And so now he wants to transfer that burden to Don Myers. Well, I like that, be in that position, but if I can accept that responsibility, let's be realistic about what it is it's going to do to fix your business. And if I remember almost correctly, that type of situation, the worst thing you can do if you're starting out something where you're going to depend on a material handling piece of equipment, it better be the best that you can do. The cheapest thing is always just the monthly payment. Almost sound like a car salesman there, right? But it's really true. You buy a new truck and you consume it, it'll last twice as long as getting a used truck, even more than that, And I've been back. I'd like to think that I could visit any place I've ever sold a forklift and not be embarrassed to go inside. Now, that's not to say that they didn't force their will and they bought a used truck and it turned out to be a disaster. But I guarantee you, I probably replaced it with a new one. And they got a financial education.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you reminded me of, other than that, the $5,000 forklift, leasing a new forklift, we just released an interview a couple of weeks ago with one of my clients, David Smith, and he's, operating multiple facilities, and they did a truck. I forget exactly what it was called. It's in the show notes of that show, but they showed where they were losing money, and these were over the road. I think it was lift trucks and delivery truck. It was all, they looked at their whole fleet, and they had ways, they were doing employee satisfaction surveys, customer satisfaction, about breakdowns, stuff not getting delivered. And they figured that it was costing them money to have this older fleet, that they actually made money by replacing, going through. It was a big company, a lot of trucks, big study. So it's worth it for our clients. You can share that resource with your clients, as David was really articulate about it. And how do you measure employee status or driver satisfaction? He's like, we have these surveys, that there was a company, they made them up, we gave it, they tabulated the data, we had a way to count all those metrics. So it makes common sense, but they've proved it, with studies. So that's a great point. And the good salespeople are going to find which clients and get them into the right truck, the right system. For us, it's the right system.
Yeah, you get to where you've identified what's going to be the best fit for them financially. You get to what works. Always the best solution is new equipment. It's going to yield the lowest cost. We have customers that use their forklift a couple hundred hours a year. Harder to justify new with that. I get that. But for the most part, the average user, if he only uses it 500 hours a year, which is half the standard, I guess, well, he's going to have the thing for 20 years. I've often tell a guy, especially in a small business, if indeed that's the case, you're going to retire with this machine, and it'll be a fixed asset. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. So it works either way, right? It just works either way, that you find the solution. And then we have guys on the other end. We just delivered forklifts to a company that wanted to lease things for 60 months, and they want to put 3,500 hours a year on it. Well, that's a ton of use. That's thousands and thousands of miles if it were an automobile. We equate a medium user, the damage and use on the forklift is about 35 miles to 1 hour of use. So you start adding that up. So what was the solution? We went down to a 36-month lease. The lease payment was higher, but the maintenance was lower. And so at 36 months, they'll come out with 10,000 hours on them. And the trucks that we sell are, a little ad for my product, right? But they're so reliable that a 10,000 hour truck of any one of my brands is still viable, still usable. We have 1,400 or so rental assets, and a lot of those are north of 10,000 hours. We have a JME Equipment Company has an in-house leasing company where we own the asset. And it's a tremendous advantage, particularly to our large users. We can give you volumes of references of guys that do this with us. We'll put a truck in for, let's say, 36 months. We're partners in it, right? Because we own the asset. We want to use it afterwards. So let's say we're in the 25th month of a 36-month contract, and that thing is topping over 10,000 hours. We will come in, replace it with an identical brand new machine at the same rate, and we'll take that forklift out and we'll utilize it either as a used truck or into our rental fleet. But the customer's not going to bear the burden of those additional hours, and additional hours mean additional breakdown. No matter who's paying for the repair, on a guaranteed contract, we'd be paying for the repair. So there's where our part of the partnership is good for us. But what's he paying for? The most expensive thing on the forklift is the operator. The operator, the forklift's going to run, depending on what they're doing with it, well under $5 an hour to run, asset and maintenance, right? Or thereabouts. The operator, he may be paying that guy $25 an hour, $18 an hour, even at minimum wage, 16 or 15, whatever minimum wage is, depending on which party you vote for. It's going to be the most expensive part. If that guy's sitting around doing nothing, then who's bearing that expense? So it all works out. And it always goes back to that first interview. Ask anything. You won't offend anyone if you ask correctly. Even my stopgap question on certain clients: when do you plan on going out of business? In other words, you've just given me an order. I had a guy come in. I can document this story if you like.
Yeah.
I had a guy, one of my salesmen was sending a guy in, as often happens. They're out in the field and say, hey, Billy Bob's going to stop by to take a look at a used lift. I got one all picked out for him. At these days, lifts are a lot more expensive, right? It's a $19,000 used truck that had about 8,000 hours. That was a nice machine. He came in, let him drive. We drove around, and he said, okay, yeah, I'll take it. I said, great. And we had a nice chat. And then we walked up to where the new equipment is. And I said, look, I got to ask you, when you plan on going out of business? And it took. And he left here buying a brand new Nomad from us. And he's happy as hell. So I had an order in the bag. I didn't have anything to risk. You want to entertain this thought, or you don't want to entertain this thought? Being brash is way different than being bold. I'd like to think that being bold is a good thing. Yeah. Asking the bold questions. Brash questions could get you in trouble. And again, I caution salesmen, particularly thinner skin or younger salesmen, to be careful with that when you're going out of business, because if you're talking to a guy at IBM, that would probably be a silly question, right? So you get it. You get what's there.
Yeah, it is. It's tough questions, and you have to. I was listening to a sale. I don't listen to much sales things anymore, but there was a podcast. I forget what I was listening to. It was Jeffrey. How do you pronounce his last name? Gitomer, the guy who wrote the Sales Bible.
Gitomer.
And he was on a podcast. He was somewhere, and I can't even remember. I'll have to go back. I'll put it on the show notes. But one of his things was, he said he would tell a client in the beginning. He said, nobody does this. He goes, I have a full hour worth of slides and presentations that I think is real worthwhile. He goes, do you want to go through that, or do you want to place the order right now before I get
I like that.
And he had people look, and they were like, well, we've looked at everything. We were just kind of ordered. And then he'll say, okay, let's eat. Let's just and you skip the whole.
Again, bold question.
Yeah, it's a bold question. And you can at least get people thinking. It's kind of funny, and I love humor. I mean, humor is something that I've used in the business. You can ask kind of some of those tougher questions, because obviously it's a little tongue in cheek. When are you going out of business? You had to have built a rapport to ask that. And there is.
Absolutely. You got to be at the right spot.
So that's a good one for cold calling. Just walk in the door and say, I'm involved in material handling and warehouse solutions. When are you going out of business?
Yeah, too soon. Too soon.
I'll try it. So while we're having fun, when I first started my company, you just started with you hadn't just started. Had you been for a while working for Team Power? in
No,
2005.
when we got together, I was at Heister. That was many years before Team Power.
But then that was 97, but then when I started my company in 2005.
2005, I was the sales manager, general sales manager for Joe Hensler at Team Power Forklifts. I had a 20-year or so career with the Heister brand, and for lots of various reasons, I thought I was at a mere 50 years old. I thought that if I could sell this stuff and make this kind of money, man, I could sell anything. So I took a year off. It was a fantastic year. Again, family oriented. I thought I was rich, and then all of a sudden I say, yeah, I guess I better go back to work. And I'd done some stuff with Mr. Lopez at NLFL, and quickly figured out at the level at which I was operating, I needed service behind me. It just wasn't going to work to just be a freelance equipment salesman. There's so much more to it. And Joe Hensler I'd sold some Lindy lift trucks for him, which is one of my favorite trucks to sell. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Went to work for him in 2000 and 2001, I think. Went to work for him. So that's 2005. I would have been the GSM for him, and I would have stayed there. I liked working for Joe. Joe's a terrific fellow. In fact, I just spent the weekend at the racetrack with some of my old colleagues from Team Power Forklift. So it was a good reunion. It was a good group. He operated. Family was important to Joe, and some of the things that I can glean off of Joe mentoring. I think he mentored you a bit about his famous saying, if you're going to be in business, own the real estate you're on. I think that we all enjoy that. And it seems that the companies that I run across that seem the most successful, that's what they seem to do. So that was good. But Joe had some issues, and he decided to sell the company, and otherwise I'd probably still be with him. Fortunately, I some 4 years later wound up here. It sounds patronizing, but it's really not. I should have been here my whole career. This is a terrific place to work. There were 6 owners. Took me a couple of years to figure out if I wanted to work for them, because I had one Joe Hensler. That was enough. And the guy that bought it, Ralph Logan, and Chris Valenzuela was the sales manager there. I liked both those guys. I had nothing to give. So I learned lots of stuff from both those guys. I made good money. So it took about a 2-year process for them to convince me to come over. So they had 6 owners at the time. I said, oh, no, I don't know that I could work that way. But as it turns out, it worked out fine. 3 of those guys have since retired. And the 3 that are left are, they all were 100% of salt of the earth guys. And Audie Bergen, who I directly report to, president of our company, he's a terrific guy. And again, acts as a mentor to us and the rest of the crew. And we learned one thing. Here's a secret I'll let out about Audie. If he's asking you a question, he already knows the answer. And I've tried to live up to that. It's a little harder. He makes it look easy, but we have that. Our CFO is buttoned down as a CFO should be, and sometimes CFO's rules are harder to live by. But again, at the beginning of the process, we have certain ways that we do business. We let our customers know in advance. Mark, when you're supposed to tell a guy how we'd like to be paid, not when he wants to sign the contract, but while he's thinking about the contract.
Right.
So again, say anything, inform anything. We need to have you fill out this credit application to get you all set up. You and I just did a transaction, and that was, you were sitting in the meeting. That was one of the things I handed them in the meeting, if you recall, an application to do business with me.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. That worked out great, or is working out great. So
yeah. And you do seem with JM, like the whole time you've been with JM. I have a funny story. I'm going to tell one on you, but you just, every time I call you and I ask you, how's things going, because you've got multiple dealerships that you're involved with. There's like Salinas, there's one in Fresno, Manteca is where you're based, which is real close to us. And you just seem like, and then I didn't even realize, like, the lease, when you were describing the lease and the buyback and how you work with the client when you're looking at, that's what I call a holistic solution. You're not going, well, you guys have a 36-month contract, you got to pay for it if there's going to be extra repairs. But then you've kind of, just in the way you set it up, it's in your best interest because those repairs are coming back to you. And so you're really doing what's best for your client.
It's a partnership. We share in that the use and the distribution of that asset with the client. You're right. And I have comes across my desk often, and sometimes we have people that they'll opt for outside financing. And if your business changed, guess what? You can't just send a lease truck back, not to anybody, except maybe us. And we've done it a number of times. We are now facing a tremendous obstacle, which is the current governmental administration that wants everything to turn electric. And it's kind of an unfair mandate. And I got to tell you that in the material handling industry, not just the brands I sell, we started selling electric lift trucks in like 1947. So we've always had electric lift trucks, and in all recent history, dating way back to maybe before 2010, we were 60% electric out of everything we sell. My industry, not just us, and that's some 200,000 forklifts a year are sold, what we call the ITA count, all dealerships combined. About 200,000 forklifts are sold annually. And out of that, 60% of them are electric vehicles. Now, automotive guys would love to claim that, except, of course, the Tesla and the guys that are all electric anyway.
Right.
But to come to us and tell us that we'll no longer be able to sell propane or diesel-powered forklifts in the state of California after 2025 or 26, they're giving us a little leeway, maybe, is absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely almost impossible. Well, it is impossible. A number of our agricultural guys, and we are driven maybe 90% by ag-related clients. They'll call up for 20 rental trucks to be delivered on the corner of this and that, and they plow it over and put a portable ramp in there, and they're doing melons out in the middle of the field. Well, there's no place to plug a charger in. And the houses that are still running internal combustion vehicles, they may be 60, 70-year-old buildings that only barely have 208, and to drop enough power in to run 20 electric lift trucks could cost them $500,000. I mean, that seriously, running more power from the street, putting the drops into the building, boy, that ain't cheap. And so that's unfair to put onto agriculture.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that, and the dirty little secret about electric vehicles is the tremendous amount of internal combustion fuel it takes to mine the lithium or to process lead. And to top it all off, the majority of the country is still fossil fuel driven on their electric plants. Yeah. And in the east, the further east you go, the more coal they're using. How clean is coal?
My favorite cartoons is a Prius plugged into a coal plant. Right? It's a little cartoon. It shows a guy and he's got his thing and it's little puffs of smoke.
Yeah, we are polluting the air to make clean energy. Is it feasible? Yeah, of course it's feasible. I think it's a great idea if you could power it with a solar battery, a charger. It's fine. We have some of that.
We need nukes. If until you go nukes, it's not going to be sustainable to do, electric.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, we have one nuclear power plant barely that they want to close, and it provides 7 to 8% of the power for the state. So probably not a good idea. There's nothing wrong. I think it's Diablo Canyon, right? I think it's still operating. And now the governor's saying that might not be a bad idea to leave it open. But what I've heard, and I don't have an actual answer for this, or I did run it to ground to make sure I'm not spreading rumors. France is about the same amount of square miles as the state of California. The entire country of France would fit inside of California. We have one nuclear plant. They have 51. And their 51 aren't new. They're old as well. And so now the shocking thing that I was listening to KFBK, all the guys that built those plants, they're either dead or very retired. So they said, we don't know how to build it. I don't buy that particularly, that we don't have some young minds that can put this together.
And they were all built before computers were anything how they are now. So I've read that the safety is so much. I mean, those plants were built with a slide rule. The engineers were still using slide rules when they and I took engineering and I know what a slide rule is. I can't use it because by the time I was in engineering, you had an HP calculator, that you could do all that stuff. But now that it's just the safety's better, everything, for nukes. But like when they get nukes, well, yeah, you have one of those. Yeah, I had one of those instead of a slide rule.
Right.
And those were difficult to use. So I have a funny story about one of the things I've done in my career. If we've had strategic alliance like you have, and we have an interesting relationship too, because I wanted to bring this up. You're kind of a competitor. I mean, you have 8 or 10 guys who are they're selling some of the same things we sell.
14.
What's that?
14 of them.
You have 14. So you have 14 of my competitors that I'm giving all my the inside secrets. But one of the things I've done in this, we've done projects with you. I've done projects with RJ, and turns out I played all-star Babe Ruth baseball with him. That's one of the things I love about.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The small industry. You didn't know that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, we were on the all-star baseball team for the league we're in was Newman, Patterson, Ripon, Riverbank, and there were all these Babe Ruth teams, and it was like 2 or 3 players off of each one. But yeah, RJ and I were in that like 1983. But I did a presentation. I remember when you were with Team Power, I did the Whitewater. So you had 6 or 7, maybe 8 reps in that room. And it was a good way for me to, it's kind of like this, introduce myself to more people, get a face-to-face with your guys. And I'll never forget, you had another rep from a rack manufacturer, Lloyd, and I gave a speech. I thought it was a pretty good speech. I don't know.
Great speech.
Slides and 20 minutes, and everybody was happy. And then your next guest unceremoniously asked me to leave the room.
I know, it was so embarrassing. You were kind enough to do so without smacking him upside the head.
So I want to come back, and so I'm wondering, am I welcome to come back?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I don't think we've ever changed our relationship.
No.
Secondly, you're actually a customer. You buy lift trucks from me. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
Mark's wife enjoys having great equipment, and so I should be just calling on her instead of him to get those new lifts out there.
She's the one who believes in the lead. Like you said, it's a new piece of equipment. And she's like, we're in this business. And she's like, Don Meyer's your best friend. You better have a good forklift. I don't want to go in there and see some. I mean, you sold that great Clark. It was a beautiful green one. And then when you were with JM, the other one was the
Unicarrier. Nissan.
It's a Nissan. It's called it's a
Unicarrier.
Yeah. It's funny because people will ask me of the details about it. I don't know. I asked Don what I needed. He told me what it was and how much I just signed the dotted line. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, there's a couple last questions that I want to ask you. We share some hobbies with cars and that. But we've had some people in common that we've mentored that have done phenomenally well.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, what are some of the proudest moments of your career, thinking back? You've had a lot of great people working for you, and you've worked for some great people. I mean, Joe Hensler, and what were the first mentors that you mentioned in the beginning?
John Turliker and Rick Lopez, and Lopez and I talk several times a week. Usually, so we both sell Unicarrier product, and he's shifting a bunch of Unicarrier product into my territory now, which we partner in. So what could be better, right? But I've had a lot of guys along the way, and there's if you're going to be good at this, you should open yourself up to other sales guys. I like to say I didn't really think anything myself. I stole it from everybody else. And working with quality salesmen, I can name off a ton of guys that some with us, some that aren't with us, that really set the bar for me. Early on when I went to work for Heister, like 84, I think, 83, 84, the branch manager there, my first big commission check, I went and thanked him. He said, "Don't thank me, thank the client." That was good, and that stuck with me. the clients are important. They come first. You can't become successful, excuse me, in this business if it's not a good deal for both parties. You just can't. You can hold your head high. Like I said earlier, I can go anywhere I've ever sold a lift truck. If it didn't work out, it wasn't because we didn't try, or it wasn't because I didn't try to have them buy what was right for them. So,
Right.
but still, you can still show it and hold your head high. I think that says a lot. Also, the old school used car salesman types, they can't go in places that they've done business with.
Yeah, that was one of the things that when I was a rookie in material handling business, I had just come out of the car business. I actually worked my way through college working at the Swift dealerships in Sacramento.
Oh yeah.
And I quickly became a manager. I was just trying to work my way through school, but I was passionate about cars. I mean, that's one of the things that we share in common. I see you've got the picture of a hot rod behind you. What is that? I can't tell what it is from where I'm sitting.
That's a Shelby Cobra.
Shelby Cobra, yeah.
There's a Mustang over there.
Yeah,
those are Shelby autographed photos that one of my friends gave me. So
nice.
Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, those are cool. But you told me to be proud of that. I mean, I was a little bit shy. I mean, I felt like I was different. Like I was going to school, so it was a great way to make a living with flexible hours and learn. Like I wanted to go into sales, and I don't think there's really a better, like I can't think of a better place to learn sales where people are coming in off the street and they're automatically already don't like you. They're mad at you. They
Right.
don't want to talk.
On the defense.
And that was one of the things I loved about cold calling is I was like, man, I've been doing this for 5 years, having people come in. I had to take whatever came in. It was a kind of a relief to say, I want to look at the companies I want to do business with and go in, put my best foot forward. But I think I want you to combine the cars question and the leadership. I mean, I think you're a person that leadership is just a part of your natural expression of who you are. And what do you think, whether it's your hobbies or habits or, what do you think, why do you think that leadership's a part of your natural self-expression?
Well, I don't know. I guess attitude is everything. You're driven by attitude. Your health is driven by attitude. I think you and I have discussed that. What the mind can conceive, the body can. Mind can perceive, the body can conceive. Right? I get that right?
What the mind can conceive and believe, the body can achieve.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I went to a training early on, and it was the manager as communicator, coach, and counselor, right? And so sometimes I have to turn my collar around and become Father Myers, and other times I have to be the disciplinarian. And I try to manage out of enthusiasm. I'm known around here for, everything's fantastic, man. I like things to be fantastic.
It is fantastic. That's fantastic.
Fantastic. To me, no one here is at a higher station than any other. That simply put, I have people that have a variety of jobs here. We have 190 employees. They don't all report to Manteca. We have 7 locations. So in this group, the time clock is right outside my window here in the JM facility, and I love nothing more than greeting our people, and that's kind of why I set my life at is you're an important part of our group. It comes customer or clients employees that want to do something. I'll do nothing but encourage them and the things they need to do. I've had a number of people as technicians or other positions in our company that have risen to the job of sales, and that all comes from the enthusiasm that I give them, and then the direction of if you want to become a salesman, how would you prepare for it, and give them some building blocks to do that. But I think the way that you present something, we have 2 examples. Too much enthusiasm would be the last president, and not enough would be the current president. So somewhere in the middle, you figure out what's going to be good.
It's a seesaw. Yeah. And it's really a tension between that. It's not like
Yeah.
one side and not kind of sloppy in the middle, but that's a great point. How do you have a tension between, for me, I'd say enthusiasm and authenticity. For me,
Yeah.
it's important to be authentic, but I'm the same way. It's the language you use and what the mind can conceive and believe, the body can achieve. And that's a great answer. And you started to go into, and I love this because I think, especially in this business, if you have a background in parts or your PSR, I forget what those things stand for, but service and support rep parts. What does PSR stand for? Part, service, and
Parts of
support.
service, yeah, part of service and some.
So you're talking about people with different. What are some of those things? I mean, we're running late, but if you were preparing for a career in sales and that you had experience in the business, what are a few of those things you'd say to do to prepare yourself? Because I think you do need to prepare. Sales there's challenges, right? So what do you?
There are challenges, and it is to do the scary. You know what to do the scary is?
Yeah.
Lots of folks are afraid to get up and talk in public. You could be that guy and be a successful salesman. It's pretty hard to do. Develop first your attitude. I don't owe you anything if you come to work for me. There's an opportunity, and it's a mutual opportunity. I'm taking a risk that you're going to be worth the investment that my company's going to make in you, and you're going to take a risk that what I'm bringing to you is a genuine opportunity. And I know it is. I mean, I know the opportunity. I know this business. If you do this job correctly, then one of my favorite things is if I've got salesmen in-house, nobody here's buying lift trucks.
Right.
You want to go out there. But besides that, I mentioned throughput, and that's a great place for a young salesperson to get their chops. When I started, I learned that early on about asking questions, and I learned not to just show up and throw up, right? Which means don't show up there and say, oh, we got forklifts, we got rack, we got pallet jacks, we got this, we got that.
Yeah.
You can't do that because if you don't need something at the mall, you don't stop there, do you? If you need something at the mall, you go there for a specific thing. Our job is a little more difficult. We have to identify that which you didn't know you needed. Is that fair to say it that way?
It is.
How you do that is you have to get inside of the building, and you have to maybe bait the hook sometimes for a client by asking subtle questions. Tell me about that. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Okay. And don't immediately say, I can sell you something for that. When you're surmising at the end, say, I got some ideas for that. Let me bring them back to you. Why do I want to do that? I want a second visit, because on the second visit, I'm going to learn more, right? So the inquisitive nature is something they need to work on. Their attitude, if when I come in the morning and I'll say good morning to people, and they say, how you doing? I say, I'm fantastic. You know why? I work with you. And I'm sincere. I love it. They mock me with it. They do mock me with it because that helps the whole overall environment here. I like to think, again, that being the cheerleader builds my enthusiasm. And if anybody's listening to this, particularly new salesmen, truly making those cold calls is the most fun you ever have. And Mark will tell you, the beauty of this business is you never know on a given day what opportunity is going to come your way. You may come into work, but by the end of the day, you might have had the biggest opportunity of your life come across your desk. And those happen by not sending a guy a quote over the internet. You go see them. I'd rather just not send them a quote at all if they don't want to see me, because chances are you're just the backup bid.
Yeah, you're just creating, I call it the lumber. It's just, you got a bunch of stack of quotes this big, but you don't have any real clients. And in our business, the racking, the forklift, it's the same. Being in the building, I mean, physically seeing what's going on. There's always stuff you see that you can't get over the phone. And then the most important thing, like you're saying, is developing that relationship where you are going to, assess their needs and make, value added suggestions. Those are just great. Those are great points. Makes me want to go into sales.
Come on down. I get your territory.
Oh, and you are, if I ever call you and I want a job, I'm hoping that you'll hire me to run your material handling part part of your division.
They'll give you a brand new pickup.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'll have to get rid of my old 10-year-old Corvette.
I can't imagine it's 10 years old by now, but I guess, huh?
Yeah, that's
the second one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your big car? Tell me, I know you have this awesome Mustang. It's won all kinds of awards. Tell me about the Mustang.
Well, it's a 67 Mustang fastback, and it's as a hobby, as things you got to have your outlets. If you can go too far with a career. If you take it home with you, it's bad for the family.
Yeah.
If you organize your days, then you can go home with a clear mind. And you need to have a release, whatever your art is. I have a couple different arts that I do, but when it comes to the car, I've had many. I've put together many. This is probably the most extensive build that I did. It's been published in a magazine, and it's won all kinds of different awards. But it served as a little internal motivation. It was mostly built on areas where I made additional dollars, bonuses, and large commissions over various projects. Yeah. And I built it, and it's done so well simply because I didn't want to settle for something less. And I have a large group of hot rod buddies that, no, just do this and you'll have it on the road. It took me 7 years to build the thing. But for me, that was the release. There's nothing like putting something new and shiny on your project car and then sitting back in the garage, crack a beer and go, man, ain't I cool?
Right.
So that's what that hobby provides. Plus you meet the world's greatest people at these types of things, car functions and such.
Yeah. Yeah. I love car shows. And there's I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this or not, but I remember you told me a story that yours is you did everything like a Shelby, but it's not the actual Shelby. But
right.
You've won. People get pissed because your car is nicer than the actual Shelby. Was that?
That's true. Well,
tell me that, because I love that. I love that. I mean, you built your own.
An original Shelby GT 500 is $150,000, $185,000 car.
Uh-huh.
It's not hard to make it better than an original. So an original is using maybe acrylic paint, and you can't have anything cool on it. In today's automotive world, there's everything's available. My car is I think faster than original Shelby. It's got 4-wheel disc brakes. It's got an explosion-proof gas tank. It's got a fuel shutoff system, and it's got extra frame support. It has a restraint system that surpasses what you might find on the original cars. There's just a lot about it that makes it faster, safer, and jump over small buildings with a single bound.
I just watched Starsky and Hutch, the movie, and that's a Gran Torino that he jumps. Like, you could probably do that with your Mustang, just like
exactly. It flies. No, it is at car shows, because of the paint, base coat, clear coat paint, PPG colors. It just pops. It just does. And if you put it next to an original, the originals are 60-year-old machine, and they look 60 in some cases, and some are marvelously restored. And gosh, I'd take one in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And you get flack when the best form of flattery is copying, right?
Yeah.
And so I've never shown it and claimed it to be the original ever. People come and say, and I say, well, it's what we call a resto mod, or a tribute car, or clone, if you will. Not my favorite term, clone. But it's done so well because it is what it is. I have other Mustanger guys that will give me a bad time about it, but I say, well, it has done how it's done, because as well as it's done, because it is what it is. I took it to Knott's Berry Farm, and I met a guy from a little magazine called CarCraft, and they published 4 pages in CarCraft on the car, based on not being a clone, but the level of the restoration. Nice. At at that same show, I was invited by the president of the Los Angeles chapter of the Shelby America Club to show the car on the Santa Monica Pier. They got such a kick out of the blend of honoring the original car, but what it could be today with modern conveniences. That's why it took so long to build. It's got a 5-speed transmission in it. I can get out on the freeway and drop it into fifth gear, and it gets great mileage. And we could go to my garage right now and drive to LA in the darn thing.
Nice.
I've trailered it. It's not a trailer queen, but I trailer it so that we have trouble. Usually it's 4 or 5 or 8 of us going at one time. Somebody has trouble, take mine off the trailer and we'll put theirs on until we can get it fixed. I had a unique experience of hauling a guy's pickup from Knott's Berry Farm all the way back up to Delhi, up by Turlock Modesto area. A guy's 49 pickup that wouldn't go any further. And he was trying to get AAA to tow it all the way home. That wasn't working. So I didn't know the guy, but he was a friend of a friend, right? So you do what's right. Good karma, man. And we're driving along, and I call back to the guy, my buddy that's driving my car. I said, hey, don't we need gas in that thing yet? And he says, no. I said, man, that must be doing pretty well on the mileage. And he says, well, Don, you never drive at 55 miles an hour. Oh, yeah, there's that. But yeah, it seems sometimes folks will think it's egotistical, but it's not. I like going to car shows because you get great stories from people that their dad had one, or their whomever, or they're building one. And I enjoy those stories. How did you do this? Where did you find that? It's just good camaraderie and achievements that you make personal life. My granddaughter in her 3rd year at ASU, it's an achievement.
Nice. Yeah.
Your car doing well. Other things that I do some stuff with the University of Pacific, and that's been a lifelong pursuit. So I think if you divide up, compartmentalize things, it's so much stronger for your mind. I know that you take a great deal of pride in your family. I think the things that I admire, Mark, where the hell you been? I couldn't get a hold of you. I was in Australia surfing. I love that. That was fantastic. Yeah. So your world adventures, I live vicariously by.
Yeah, we're overdue for those big vacations, but we've made family a priority. I love the story about your car. It's a beautiful story because you took the time, you did it right, and even though it's not the exact car, I mean, all those reasons that makes it unique. The magazine art. What year was the Carcraft?
2006. 2006.
And I don't know if we'll be able to get a link to that in the show notes. If I can, I will get it. And the thing you reminded me about cold calling and the car, this is all connected. A friend of mine, his daughter's in sales. He was asking me for some short advice about cold calling because she's nervous about it. And I said, man, the thing of it is, when I did it, I just did it. And I kind of did, check up from the neck up, try to start brand new every time. I gave him all this, like, keep doing it. I mean, the more you do it, like after you've done a few thousand, it starts to get, pretty easy. You're just doing it without trying. Yeah. But the one thing, and I want to say it on this, I forgot to tell him, I had to call him back. I go, I also used to pray a lot more when I was cold calling. I would pray, and it helped,
Yeah, so, absolutely. Faith-based. I told you that in the beginning.
Faith-based because, I had to have faith that I was the right person at the right time. And it wasn't, will this person buy? It's just pray for the right thing to happen, that it's going to happen for me at the right time, that I'll recognize the opportunity when it's there. Well, Don, this is it's truly been a pleasure. We're out of time. I really feel like I want to do round 2. Folks, it's Don Myers, Jam Equipment, Forklift sales manager extraordinaire, car collector, and one of my best mentors. It's truly been a pleasure to have you on, Don.
Oh, no, thank you very much. And the nice compliments. And as much as it's been a pleasure for you, it's been a pleasure for me to see your success. We've have other colleagues that have gone on to do the ultimate build a business and sell it successfully. Young guys that walk in looking for a job. And I hire folks and have for a long time. And I have to tell you, it's the way they come through the door. I'll go, that's a winner, before they even open their mouth. I can almost tell. And it's like 90% of the interview, the way you come through the door. So always remember that. The way you come through the door, somebody's making a decision on it. A tie is always accepted.
A tie and wear a tie. So what's the best way? So if somebody was looking for a career with your phone line going to blow, what's the best way to, if someone was interested in starting a career in forklift, would be the best way to get in contact?
They could reach out to me at donm@jmequipment.com. donm@jmequipment.com. Or for the brave, and if you have a lot of time, 209-408-2345. That's my cell phone.
That's fantastic. So direct line for Don Myers if you're interested in launching an outstanding career in the material handling business. Don, thank you so much.
Thanks, Martin. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.